You just mentioned Plat Plus. This is your major mastermind that you've been running for 15 years. Is that right?
That's correct.
I mean, people are traveling, very busy people are traveling from very far away to get to these meetings. Why? Why are they taking sometimes a whole day out to travel to these meetings? Why are people making that choice?
Yeah, by definition, if you're in this room, you are a very busy person. You're running a 7 or 8 figure business. You don't have a lot of free time, and yet they're carving out that time. And there's a lot of reasons. It's that growth, it's the community, it's the family. And one of the things I think about is this, what I call, well, actually I learned this from Dan, is this concept of looking through the corners.
It's literally anything where you're moving at speed. For my life, it is applied with, mountain biking, with skiing, with racing cars, like anything you're doing where you're moving with speed, it applies to that. Thought is that, people tend to look at what's directly in front of them. If you're going around a corner, then people tend to be just staring at what's right in front of their bars. If you're riding a bike and you're going around a corner and you're trying to go at speed, they're just looking at what's directly in front of them instead of looking at where they're going. And what happens, and this is, so directly analogous to business and even to life, is that you go where you're looking. A tangential one to this would be like you're riding a bike or you're skiing or whatever, and maybe there's a big rock that you don't want to hit, or you're riding along the edge of, kind of a drop off or a cliff or something, and you really don't want to fall off that drop off. The natural instinct is to look at the thing and hyper focus on the thing you're afraid of. And so if you're riding your bike down a trail and there's a big rock, and if you hit that rock, you're probably going to crash, then the natural instinct for just about everybody is to really focus on that. They're really focused on the thing that they don't want to hit. And what happens is that your body goes where your eyes are looking, and that more often than not leads people to ride or drive directly into the thing that they're trying to dodge. So there's this thought of look through the corners, look at where you want to go, and then your body's going to naturally guide you towards that destination. This group is so good at that. This group is so, to bring this back to the masterminds, this group is so good at looking at where they want to go and focusing on what's coming next. Sure, there's challenges in this industry, but the reality is there always are. And, seeing this throughout the years, in the last 15 years of this group, we've seen so many times where someone's come to the group and they show up and they're acting pretty normal and hanging out. And then, maybe it's a dinner one night, they kind of have a conversation and tell someone, like, hey, you know what? I'm actually not really that okay right now. And then, during the day that comes up the next day, during the meeting, someone's like, hey, this person over here, they're actually struggling a little bit. Can we give them a little bit of time? And these things come out in these in-person meetings. And we've had it happen. People are like, hey, I've only got this amount of time left in my business before we run out of money. Or we've had, hey, my business is going great, but I kind of hate it. Can you help me fix it? And we've also had people who've come in and said, you know what? Hey, everything's going great, but honestly, I see this thing coming up. We have one member, and she a couple years ago was talking about, I've got this content platform and people will be able to use AI, and they're just going to, enter all the things that they want to talk about, and it'll just make a lead magnet for them, and it'll make the page, and it'll do all this. And I remember looking and just being like, how is that even possible? Like, I don't think AI can do those sort of things yet. And she's like, no, yeah, we pretty much just are at the point where AI could start doing those things. And then, it was whatever, 6 months later, it was like that idea was no longer like a crazy out there idea. It was like, whoa, you're like on the super cutting edge. But she was doing this before there was anything that I'd heard about people doing. Same, we had another person who was doing the same thing with AI, but with video. And he was like, hey, right now, you just upload your videos and my AI will edit them for you. And they look really good. And actually, like pretty soon, I think we'll be able to even start having where the AI can fill in little gaps. Like if you're like, I wish I said this thing, but I didn't. And, and we're like, really? Like, okay. Like you seem really confident and we know you're really smart. We've seen you start 3 different businesses over the course of time in the group. So imagine it's going to work out. Suddenly we see these announcements, coming up in the news, and it's like, AI can now do these things. And you're like, whoa. And it comes to the next meeting and he's just like, oh yeah, I can already do that. The thing that is theoretically possible. Yeah, my software actually does that right now. It's just so cool to see these people. That's so much of what they give to the group and they get from the group, right? Is that future sort of thought. And they're really, really good at catching you or catching other members. Like if you fall into that state where you're looking at the thing that you're afraid of hitting, so focused on something that might be an issue or a challenge in your business, this group is really good at saying, well, okay, sure, but instead of focusing so much on that, like how about this giant opportunity that's just on the other side of that? Like, maybe let's focus on that instead. I think that's what people get from the in-person meetings.
Looking through the corners. So I actually remember when Dan shared that with me. It was like 20 years ago. We were out on mountain bikes, and Dan, it was at High Plains Drifter, that thing we used to call High Plains Drifter. And it was a series of really sharp turns. And this last turn was just a really, it was an intense turn you really had to commit to. You really had to look through the corner. And oh, by the way, it was in a forest, so you couldn't even see the other side of the corner, but you had to force yourself to look at the exit and how you're going to get through it. And I think that metaphor is so strong for business. The way to get through the obstacle is look past the obstacle, not look at the obstacle. And I think we're in a time now where we have to do that. Things are changing so fast that we have to look through the corner. We can't look at the obstacle. We have to look at our path past the obstacle.
Absolutely. And it's hard to do. It's not your natural instinct, right? If you got a challenge, if you got something that you're struggling with, it's so easy to hyper focus on that, right? And to just get so wrapped up into, the initial challenge that's in front of you that it's really easy to miss the opportunity that also exists on the other side of it.
And also, as a leader of an organization that's significant, as every single one of these people in your mastermind is, where in their world are they able to struggle? Are they allowed to be that vulnerable person? And they're running large organizations. They're running teams where they've got to have the answers. They've got to be the leader. They have to be that position of strength. But to be able to come to a room where they can let that go a little bit and be able to be vulnerable and say what really is going on for them. Can you speak to that a little bit about what is that for people in that moment? Because it sounds like that's part of what the magic in this room is.
Chris, I'm so glad you brought that up. This is absolutely critical. Everyone in the group is a leader. They're a leader for their industry. They're a leader for their clients. They're a leader for their team. There's all this talk these days of authenticity. And yes, authenticity is awesome. But the reality is, as a leader, your job is to project confidence, especially for your team. You have to project confidence. Yes, you can let people know things are hard. We're facing this challenge, but you have to project confidence. And it's a big weight. Leadership is lonely. It is a huge weight. And so one of the super powerful things of this mastermind, especially given the cone of silence, is that these people who are leaders in every other area of their life, that they have to carry this huge burden, they can show up in this room and they can be vulnerable. They can share the challenges. They can share that, I'm not in love with, at this moment, I'm not, like Dan just said, at this moment, I'm not in love with my business. I built this great big thing, but I sort of hate my life right now. People can say that in this room. And to be able to share that is incredibly powerful. And it's the first step to figuring out how to fix it. And so, that is one of the greatest gifts that this mastermind gives people, is that it allows people who are leaders in every other area of their life to show up and say, wow, this is what's really going on for me.
Hey, Launch family, one more thing before you go. I hope you enjoyed that discussion with Jeff and Dan about the Mastermind Group Plat Plus. If you're not quite at Plat Plus level yet, but you're serious about launching or growing your business, then check out our upcoming Launch Intensive. It's coming up this spring in 2025. Now just head over to getyouLaunched.com to see how you can join us live. And of course, hit that follow or subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming episodes, especially the next one where we break down what actually went on in that Plat Plus Mastermind group. It's going to be big.